is up awake? It is April. Can you believe it? This second semester has just flown by. And so I feel like I got a lot still to say to you. I know that God has a lot more to say to you. And so I want you right here in April, this moment, to commit to like, I'm coming back. I'm definitely hitting these last 3 messages. I'm going to follow them and figure out like what's happening this summer. And like in September, I am back because this is good and God is good. And so we're going to jump into tonight's message on Philippians chapter 2. You read chapter 1 last week, heard a great message from Pastor Derek, and I get to just continue on with this with Philippians chapter 2. And I asked you to go ahead and circle how many times you saw the word humble. And I know if you're anything like me, you already are like looking over your friend's paper. Wait, you got 2. I got 3. You're missing 1. There's 3 of them. You know, you ask your tribe leader, make sure that there's 3. And there's 3, but these like 3 came in like the first 6 verses, which feels really important as we look at this whole chapter. I think that Paul is asking us to be, what does it mean to be humble? What does it look like to act humble? Who is humble? Why should we be humble? And you're like, Nancy, you've said humble a lot now. And I mean, humble is like one of these words that like I know up here. Like it's one of those like I kind of get it, I kind of don't, but it's up there. And so what I do when I don't know a word, I want to know more. I go to the Google in my back pocket and I search humble definition. And this is what Google told me. It said that this is when you have or show a modest or low estimate of yourself, or you lower your rank. And you're like, okay, that's kind of helpful, like lowering my rank. And what I also know about humble is it's really the opposite of pride. And so sometimes maybe as we look to start to understand words, I want to look at the opposite. I want to look at what does it mean to be pride? And I have some props because I love my props. And I have this balloon, okay? And what I think that pride sometimes does to other people, let's say them, is it really like blows them up. They're really awesome, okay? And so this is somebody's pride. This is somebody's ego. I don't personally know Taylor Swift, but I feel like she's kind of a prideful person. She's very successful. She thinks highly of herself. She's got Oscars. She does all the things. She's got her own albums, the Taylor version. Okay, there's a lot. And so this might be of like what Taylor Swift is feeling, maybe what we think about her. And what I often see what happens with pride, especially at high levels, is something terrible comes out about them. And here's what happens to their pride. It is loud, it is abrupt, it gets shattered because what if you end Tribes Night, you look at your phone and you see this headline, Taylor Swift has been cheating on Travis Kelce with his brother. Wouldn't that not just shatter the pride of Taylor Swift, shatter the fans? It would be explosive. It would be loud. We would talk about it and we don't know why. But like that is sometimes what happens with people's pride. That they think that they're better than everything else, and this terrible thing comes out that they've been hiding, and it's shot. We also have, I think, a way of pride, again, another balloon here, of just like, this is usually how we do it to ourselves. So you ready? I got an A on that test. None of you guys did. Suckers. I am faster than all y'all. Did you see my mile time? It was fine. I got my new kicks. You want to know how much they cost? More than you make. I am better. I am stronger. I am prettier. I am everything more than you. And we have this pride and we're building ourselves up. And then all of a sudden you fall up the stairs. Did you get that? And you're like, oh, that was embarrassing. My pride is shot. Who I think I am, like, oh, that's bad. Wait. I did it again. I did super well in my essay. I did it again. 100-yard sprint, fastest one here. I'm great. I'm beautiful. I'm better than you. And we're building ourselves up. And then something embarrassing happens and you sound silly. You're like, no. Everybody look at me. And we're just doing this act back and forth and back and forth. And it is exhausting. And she's like, well, then maybe this. This is being humble. This is being humility. This is just, I'm a deflated balloon. I'm not important. Everything I do doesn't matter. Everybody's better than me. I'm just a deflated balloon. And I don't think that's what we're going after either. Like this, it's a balloon. It's supposed to be blown up, right? Like it's supposed to be part of a party. And I think then like how Philippians chapter 1 ended and how Philippians chapter 2 starts is this idea of then where is our confidence supposed to come from? And I think it really starts to come from where Derek led off of a worthy of our calling of the good news of Jesus. Jesus is the one that's supposed to be hyping us up. So here I've got then a balloon pump. And I want you to think of this as the outside source of of Jesus being the one that's going to hype us up, that's going to be the one that fills us up. Because this is how Philippians chapter 2 starts. It goes through this idea of saying, hey, is there any encouragement to belonging to Christ? Yeah, I am in Christ's family. I am a part of him. He sees me. Is there anything in the comfort of his love? God loves me. He shows me. He sees me. Is there any affection from the Spirit? Yeah, our fellowship from the Spirit. Yeah, I am not alone. I can be kind. I can be tender. I can be compassionate because of what Jesus has done for me. And we now have this balloon that is what it's supposed to be. A balloon, and we're sealed then with that confidence of Jesus that we now do get to walk around as the balloon, as the calling we've been asked to, but we've been filled with reading our Bible, with praying, with worshiping. That's the type of filling that we have. And so Paul then continues of saying, like, if we're not supposed to think of ourselves above everyone, seek our own needs, like, who did this better than Jesus? Derek had said last week, he's the best teacher. He was referred to as teacher. And so this next chunk, which is kind of like a poem, it's a little earthy, it's good. It's got a vibe to it that we want to look into of like, how was Jesus then humble? And so we're going to pick up then in verse 6 and kind of take this a little bit awkward, maybe it feels like, as I pull out some different stanzas. But it starts here of how was Jesus humble? And I want us as we go through this to ask ourselves 3 questions then, 3 humbling questions of us and where we're at. So it starts out verse 6. Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. So Jesus left heaven. He wasn't clinging to his position, to his power, to his status, to whatever it is. He wasn't clinging to it. He left it. He released it. See a balloon? Peace out. Catch you next time. Like, he didn't hold on to it as something to be grasped. He released that to come down to us. And so I'm wondering, like, what are we clinging to then? What am I clinging to? Am I clinging to my intelligence, that I'm smart? Am I clinging to my athleticism? Like, if I were to lose that, I would lose everything. What am I clinging to? My accomplishments, my friends, what they think of me, my following. Like, what am I clinging to? And we have to know that before we can get humble about it. And so it goes on. It says in verse 7, instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave. And what do you think the privileges are then that Jesus gave up? I mean, it's the same ones. He gave up some power. He gave up, he still was God down here. He gave up his status. He gave up, fame. He gave up his item as a God to come down into a human, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Like, what does it mean to be human? But I also, he had this chance where he's like, hey guys, I came to be a slave. I came to be a servant. And he brings this up in Matthew chapter 20, where this has been a common problem with us humans the whole time of saying, like, I want to be the best. I want to be the greatest. And so in Matthew 20, what happens is this mom comes to Jesus and she kneels before him. You're like, good job. We should be kneeling in front of Jesus. And Jesus goes, what do you want? And she responds, I want my sons to sit on your right side and your left side in the kingdom. She is asking for her sons to be the right hand and the left hand man of Jesus, of the King. Like, this is a high spot of prestige and power. And Jesus is like, are you going to take the cup that I am? And he's like, yeah, eventually you will. But like, this is not the time for this. And the disciples, they heard about this because they also are like, no, I want to be the greatest. I should be the one that gets to sit next to Jesus. I should be the one with all this power. And in Matthew chapter 20, verse 24, this is what it picks up with the story with our disciples and how Jesus reacts. It says, when the 10 others heard about this, they lost their minds. Okay, they lost their tempers, thoroughly disgusted with the 2 brothers. So Jesus got them together to settle things down. He said, you've observed how godless rulers throw their weight around, how quickly a little power goes to their heads. It's not going to be that way with you. Whoever wants to be the greatest must become a servant. Whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave. That is what the Son of Man has done. He came to serve, not to be served, and then to give away his life in exchange for the many who are held hostage. Over and over we read in the Gospels that he served us with his healing, with his time with us, with answering questions, with how he just walked with us. And so I'm wondering then of like, where or who do we need to serve instead of being served? Like at your house, like I would love for my mom to come back and serve me all my meals again, but she's not. And I wonder just at your own house, like where are there places that you can step up into an act of service for your family? Where's a place that you can step up and serve your friends, serve in your church, serve at your school? Where's the place that you've just been kind of taking way too much? You're expecting everybody to serve you and it's time to be like, no, I need to serve them. I need to be like Jesus, have the same attitude as Jesus, and be in service. So I want you to think on that one. Because the poem goes on, the verse goes on, it says, and was born as a human being when he appeared in human form. And I pulled this out, I'm just like, what does it mean to be human? Like, again, if Jesus, who is God, came to earth to be a human, here are some human things I know that we do. And I know that Jesus did because he came to human form. You ready for the first one? He pooped in a hole, right? Like Jesus as a human had to go to the bathroom. He got hungry. He got thirsty. He got tired. He was 13 at one point, which means he also had to go through puberty. His voice cracked. He grew too fast. Maybe he didn't grow fast enough. He slipped. He had to learn how to walk. He had to learn how to run. He bled. Right? These are human characteristics, and this idea of him bleeding is what brings us to that next verse that says he humbled himself in obedience of God and died a criminal's death on a cross. Again, he continually had to place his fame, his status, his ability on hold. He lowered himself to the rank of a human because he loved us and he wanted to obey God. And he could see that his calling on his life was to save humanity, the people that he loved, and he wanted to serve them because he is a good God. And so this is what we want to ask for ourselves. And after he died that death, I mean, we just had Easter. I hope you were there, and you know that he rose again. Paul highlights it as well. He says this fact of being that God, therefore God elevated him to the place of highest honor. And so Jesus rose from the dead. He walked again on the earth. And this whole time, like I said, he was driven by a love. He was connected to the Father. He was encouraged by the Father when he got away and prayed. He was fellowship with the Spirit. When he was baptized, the Spirit came and said, "This is my good and beloved Son." He had tender love and compassion. Like he was all of these things, and he's inviting us into that as well because God would elevate him. And so again, as we had with the ball pump, that like we're not supposed to elevate ourselves. God is supposed to elevate us. And so if God is elevating us, again, we're reading, we are praying, we are talking to others about Jesus, we're talking about the good news, we are worshiping, we are getting filled by God, then I know that I still have on my breath. Like, remember at the beginning when I was like, trying to get this balloon filled up? Like, what am I supposed to do with my breath then, right? What am I supposed to do with my breath? And I think that's where Paul ends then, chapter 2, is he pulls out this guy, Timothy, and another guy, E-Dude. I have no idea how to say his name. I didn't look it up. It felt like it was too hard. It was risky, okay? So I called him E-Dude. And what's neat is the Philippians, not everybody knew how to read at that time. So my guess is that Timothy and E-Dude had to go to the church in Philippi and read this letter to the whole people. And so they're reading this, and they're like, look at Paul. He's lifting us up. You know what they would say this time? He's gassing us up. Look at us. We're awesome. Paul thinks that we are great. And so we have this spot that we are getting, that they are getting gassed up. And I was at my tribe party recently, and I thought it was so interesting that they had this time where they went back and forth of like, they're gassing me up. Yeah, but I gaslighted that person. Oh, this person gassed me up. And then I gaslighted that person. And I think gas is the same thing like this balloon, right? You gas somebody up, you rev up, you get to move in, you're filled up. And gaslighting, which is like, no, you're the worst, you're crazy. And so you're emptying them, right? A gas light comes on in a car when it's empty. And so I'm just curious then, as we ask ourselves, as we kind of finish out of how to be humble, am I doing more gassing up or am I doing more gaslighting? And that's my last question for you is then who am I gassing up? And so as I was thinking about this final message of like, where did I have to deal with this in middle school and high school? Like, where did I really struggle with this? And it was in soccer. I've played soccer my whole life. I love it. And from 6th grade to 9th grade, I was a goalie. Hated running, thought goaling would be my thing. And so I had to learn as a goalie, you're the last line of defense if you haven't played before. And if the ball makes it past you, it goes in the net. And so here as a 6th grader, 7th grader, I'm having to learn like what happens when I'm the goalie. There's one part that's like, I dive, I make this epic save. And I think to myself, I'm awesome. I saved the game. This is great. And I'm thinking about all of that when another ball gets shot through it and it's like, poof, goes in the net. I was like, I'm the worst. Everything sucks. I can't do this. I've ruined the whole game. Or maybe it's like, my defender should have been there. Or if my forwards, if they could score a goal, we wouldn't lose the game. Okay, so I'm thinking about all of this on the field, and there's another shot. Boop! goes in the back of the net. And this was turmoil for me. Like, I'm wiping off tears as a 6th and 7th grader. And my dad just comes and he says, you got to figure it out. You got to talk to your team. And I was like, what do you mean I have to talk to my team? He's like, you need to start talking to your team. I was like, about what? The sky is blue today. The grass is green. Your shirt is red. Like, what am I supposed to yell to my teammates? He's like, start encouraging them. And so I was like, okay, well, great pass. Good shot. Thanks for coming back. And it started there, and it started to move into this idea that I got better as a goalie in my skill, but I also got better of knowing my position on the field and everybody else's. And so it moved from being like, I would encourage, like, hey, you're doing great, this and that I would start directing, like, hey, on your left, there's a pass, run, go over there. Or, you know what, a defender is coming behind you. Make sure you grab them. Hey, take a shot. I'm just yelling at the top of my lungs at the back as the goalie, because I'm no longer focusing on like my skill, just me. I'm able to look at the whole team. I had to humble myself, and it's not all about me, it's about the team winning. And so then to come back to this idea, if I got a balloon, and you know what, I'm hyped up about Jesus, I feel good about it, I'm encouraged, but if I just see one balloon at a party, it's a little sad. So then the idea is my breath goes to hyping, to gassing everybody else out, because if we had a whole set of balloons, you ready? Woo! We have a party. And isn't that so much more fun to have a whole set of people who are built up in Jesus, built up by us, built up by loving God than anything else? And so I just hope in your time with Tribes Night, you're asking yourself these humbling questions so that you can leave filled up by God and filled up by others. So blessings awake.